Hello there, all you beautiful people. My name is Lebushki, and welcome back to another review. This time for probably the most recent movie to come out this year, Wuthering Heights, within quotations. Now, this was an interesting movie, to say the least. There's a lot about it to like, but if you like the original novel and the original creation by Emily Bronte, chances are you're not going to love this one as much. And it's ultimately kinda just weird, or like an awkward movie, if you will. We'll move into the pros and cons just to kind of further explain my points. The top one is the only pro, all the rest are cons. So, I mean, I have to say, the set and costume design is very beautiful. Margot Robbie's dresses are, like, insanely gorgeous, and the costumes I always like costumes from movies that are set in like an earlier time, like 16, 17, 1800s, stuff like that. I always find very cool just to see how people dressed and how they managed to recreate that look for a modern audience. But as much as I like that, I'm also going to fully acknowledge that Margot Robbie's costumes are 100% not accurate to the time frame. There's materials that are used, there's like shimmering fabrics and stuff that I'm fairly certain were not used at all during that time. But at the same time, I'm watching the movie and I'm seeing, I'm like, man, that's just a really pretty dress. That's a really well designed dress. And the same with the set design. Like it's convincing for the time frame it's in, and yet there's still a lot of problems with that. The second point, which is definitely a con, convincing if not embarrassing performances from Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. Margot Robbie is one of my favorite actresses. She's really good in just everything she plays in. She's popularly known as Harley Quinn in the DC universe. She was Sharon Tate in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Can't remember her character's name, but she was in Wolf of Wall Street. So she's been in quite a few very popular movies, and she's known to be, a pretty decent actress. And she was good. I enjoyed her role in this. Jacob Elordi, he's kind of a hit or miss, especially for me. I know he's in Euphoria, which I haven't seen, so I'm not going to fully give my diagnosis of that. But what I have seen him in is The Kissing Booth, and that's not the greatest show of one's acting range, to be fair. I also saw him in Frankenstein, in which I thought he was absolutely and utterly phenomenal. I didn't even know he had it in him. So he has ability. It just kind of needs to be activated. And I did not really feel it was activated in this movie. Both of them give, like I said, convincing performances, but it's also kind of embarrassing how they treat each other and how they act towards each other. Uh, which kind of leads into the third point. This movie is incredibly indecisive about its own vibe. Is it trying to be romantic or is it trying to be more smutty? So you obviously have Catherine and Heathcliff's relationship. And in the book, I don't even think they have sex. It's mostly just longing and just kind of the wishful thinking of what could have been. Well, in this movie, they're all over each other. They're having sex like all the time. So very big difference from the book. However, they have like romantic chemistry, and then randomly there's just like some really kinky stuff going on in the movie. Like the very first scene is a hanging. So, okay, let me back up. It opens up, the movie opens in a complete black screen, and you just hear creaking. Now, I think most people assume that it was a bed, and we're just gonna open up in on a sex scene. Not the case. It was a hanging, and so you kind of take that seriously. Someone's dying, but then kids in the audience point out that the guy hanging has a boner, And so immediately it's like, well, that's an interesting thing to know. And that's kind of how Wuthering Heights is. There's seriousness, and then they kind of just interrupt it all with not really even a joke, but like just this weird smutty vibe. The very first sex scene in the movie isn't even the main characters. It's Margot Robbie's servants as she watches from the attic through the floorboards. And then additionally, they kind of dive into some weird like BDSM stuff too. Which I mean, I don't know the sexual prowess or kinks of the 1700s, whenever this is supposed to take place, but it's implied that the servants are doing it out in the barn shed, etc. That whatever that kind of thing is, and the female servant gets like bent over what holds the horse's saddle, and the male servant puts, I don't know what it's called, but it's the thing that you put in a horse's mouth, like almost like a ball gag type of thing. Just like this solid metal thing. He puts that in her mouth and then they proceed to have sex. And so everyone in the theater was kind of like, what? Like the whole vibe in the theater became very awkward very quickly. And there's a reason for that because it doesn't really know what it's doing. Additionally, and this is a spoiler, so skip like 20, 30 seconds. Additionally, later on in the movie, Jacob Elordi kind of manipulates Margot Robbie's husband's ward. I don't really know what her relationship is, and like turns her kind of into like a dog, or makes her act like a dog just to like embarrass her. And it's really weird because she's on her knees, panting, and it's just like some really kinky weirdness that just doesn't really fit the vibe of things. Because it just goes from, like, romance to just, like, kinks, and so Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi are trying to be serious throughout this whole process of weird kinkery, and it just doesn't work. Like, I'm trying not to laugh in the theater just because it's so weirdly absurd, and that leads into my 4th point. There's an impossible mesh of modern elements that don't know whether they're remaking a classic or creating something new. The way I would describe it is that this movie kind of combines Wes Anderson cinematography and design with Yorgos Lanthimos insanity. The primary factor in that, or at least what it reminds me mostly of, is his movie Poor Things. Lanthimos's, that is. And the design in that movie is really crazy, all over the wall. Uh, and this is kind of how this movie is, because it'll go from one thing to another that are vastly different. It'll have soft piano notes highlighting the romance of Catherine and Heathcliff, and then proceed just to use Charlie XCX's electronic music, which does not really fit the whole romantic vibe set in this time frame. Additionally, you have, beautiful shots of the England moors. It's cloudy, it's foggy, it's outside. Oh, it's gorgeous. And then you have these weird blood red plastic looking hallway shots from inside a mansion. You have a full room dedicated to Margot Robbie's skin color and complexion, fit with freckles and veins in the wallpaper. It, it, what? And I mean, again, this kind of ties into the whole sex versus the BDSM thing that they're kind of going for. These these elements don't mesh very well. It comes off as like awkward almost. Like, people in the theater that I was in were kinda, like, chuckling or not really taking it seriously, and I can't really, blame them. And so that just leads to the last point. It's so uniquely absurd that it's hard to take seriously. I mean, I sat there, I watched it, I watched through it, and, like, I was kinda looking at it with, like, a smile on my face threw, like, a hand on my forehead, just like, "What am I watching?" You know? I had kept up with the production of this movie, mostly because I like Emerald Fennell as a director. She did Saltburn, which I really enjoyed, even though I know that one's also kind of weird for a lot of people. But the elements I think work in that one a lot better than they do here. I haven't seen Promising Young Woman, her other movie, but now I'm very interested in seeing it. And I like Margot Robbie; she's a fantastic actress. Since Frankenstein, I've liked Jacob Elordi, so I was very interested, but I know it's not accurate to the book, and I know there's a lot of nitpicks that a lot of people have. But it's such a weird movie that I couldn't take it seriously. Like, even the romance, even the serious bits, I just felt like were just eh. It was just funny, man. Like, everyone said when I was reading reviews on Letterbox and IMDb that, like, the movie itself isn't terrible, but you can't really take it seriously. It's not necessarily a good movie, and that seems to be the common theme, is that this is kind of just like Wuthering Heights fan fiction turned more smutty or just rewritten. So, yeah. And so ultimately, I have to give it a D plus, a 45 out of 100. It's convincing in certain elements, and it's very pretty in others, but I cannot forgive the absurdity that just does not make sense for this time frame. And so it is with a heavy heart that I don't necessarily recommend Wuthering Heights. At least don't go see it by yourself. If you're gonna see it with friends so you can laugh at it. And maybe this movie works for some people, and that's completely fine. It just doesn't work for me. And I mean, again, that's completely fine. This is my own opinion, and I'm sure anyone watching will have yours. But without further ado, that's the end of another review. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of probably one of the weirdest movies I've seen in a little bit, but definitely not the most absurd movie I've seen in a little bit. And of course, as always, go see a movie in theaters. Movies are meant to be seen in theaters. It's just a great place to go to experience community and fellowship with friends or just with random strangers. Movies are great. Go see one in theaters. Doesn't have to be this one. Could be something else. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. But until then, take it easy. Peace.